we're going to talk to Lori Wallach today on this USMCA. It's an interesting sort of debate where it really is all sort of speculative. I was on Chris Hayes' program last night arguing with Barbara Boxer about whether this was a good thing to do. We will hear at least what happened as far as the agreement. You can make a determination as to whether it is worth it. And I think we end the conversation with Lori Wallach. I pre-taped this earlier with the, well, I guess we'll know, sometime late in November of 2020. But as I was going into the makeup room to take the makeup off my face, and when I told Saul I did that, he was pretty shocked that I put makeup on. He didn't realize. He had watched the show last night, I guess. He wouldn't go to bed. And I came in, and I have to go through a door. They don't give me a full pass because I am such a barely employee there, that I got to knock on the one of the locked doors. And there was a bunch of guys with no necks, older guys who look like security guys. You can see. They all look the same, with all due respect to those guys. And I'm like, I wonder what this is about. You see that occasionally because there's like a congressperson or a senator or something like that. And I go in, I grab I know where it is. I've been in this place a million times. I grab my washcloth thing, and I look over. Sitting in the chair right next to me is Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And now, here's the thing. My buddy from high school, Joe O'Brien, became mayor of Worcester, which is twice the size of the city that he was in. So
you should have said that.
I'm not that impressed that I'm standing next to a mayor.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've met college town mayors too. So.
Exactly. In fact, I was student government president at my small liberal arts college and got almost as many votes for that position as he did as mayor. So I wasn't that impressed. But I got to say that generally when I meet people, there's two type of politicians I will speak to. Ones who I really like and ones who I think are totally evil. He has not quite achieved that level yet because I frankly, I don't know. He hasn't had the chance, the opportunity in my mind to really influence politics in that way.
He's evil. Look at his McKinsey consulting.
Yeah, you haven't
that
tried,
alone.
It's possible.
You haven't tried to buy a loaf of bread in Canada yet.
Yeah, you think he's evil. Also, but you would debate one potentially on MSNBC, like a Barbara Boxer.
Oh well, I mean,
and I'm just putting it out there for the memeologists in the audience. Rob Reiner style romantic comedy vehicle
between Barbara Boxer and I. Well,
yes, that starts by arguing about
sort of like
the new NAFTA on MSNBC. I think it writes itself.
What was it? What was that mod and what was I can't remember what there was a
Harry Met Sally.
No, there was a different one.
Harold and Maude. You're suggesting that you're that much younger than she is?
I don't know. It's got to be pretty close.
Wow. Now we're really escalating for the next appearance. I like it.
It's not totally Harold and Maude.
I suggested that there was a Harold and Maude scenario, Senator Boxer.
I figured the best thing for me to do is I just looked at him like this, and he's sitting in the chair, and he's like this, and I'm like, and I didn't even acknowledge him. I figure like a guy like that, the best thing to do is just, I don't recognize who this dude is. Big deal.
We're probably in the spreadsheet that he has somewhere.
I would imagine. I mean, there's been times in MSNBC where I've gotten into arguments with Pataki. Yeah, I don't know if you were around when he said to me you're not that stupid that you actually believe that. Stuff like that. And
Pataki.
Yeah, exactly. But so here's Pete Buttigieg after he got out of the makeup chair. And I think I heard him say, "Make me look older." And I'm joking. And he went on, and there is apparently, as you know, there is footage of him talking about one of his consulting gigs where he found a lot of redundancy, had to lay off a bunch of people. And Wendell
Which
Potter.
is a very weird way of talking about burning down an Afghan village.
Right. Well, no, Wendell Potter, a former insurance executive, had said at the time, like, I'm pretty sure what he's talking about is like, a Blue Cross Blue
Yeah,
Shield.
he totally called it.
Totally called it. And so Buttigieg, who worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Now, understand the amount of money that's involved with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan is the CEOs get a lot of money. Here he is being asked about it, and then Rachel Maddow responds.
When you did that sort of cost and overhead assessment for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, a couple of years after that, they laid off like 1,000 people. Was your work part of what led to those layoffs?
I doubt it. I don't know what happened in the time after I left. That was in 2007 when they decided to shrink in 2009. Now, what I do know is that there are some voices in the Democratic primary right now who are calling for a policy that would eliminate the job of every single American working at every single insurance company in the country.
Do we have more footage there? We don't. What does she respond like? Oh no, that's a total lie. So in other words, he dodges his recommendations to cut and the idea that like I have no idea what happened. As a consultant, what happens is I give the recommendations and then they do it the next day, I guess.
What's the Bible verse for having humility about your contribution to mass layoffs when you're a consultant?
But I hope that the next thing that Rachel says here is, well, that's a complete lie. In fact, everyone knows that all those people at Blue Cross Blue Shield, a significant percentage of them, probably even a majority of those people who are working, not the CEOs necessarily, because they may not find it as lucrative, but they will be contracted in the same way that they will either be contracted to do certain things for Medicare for All, or they will be hired because they are qualified to come in and do much of the same work.
I just would like to add that word he uses of when they decided to shrink. I think it was the word he used. Was that the word he used? Maybe they shrunk. They did some shrinking after I was
Shrinkage.
there. Shrinkage. That is such a tell because people learn different euphemisms in different professions. Right. Talking about firing people. Talking about laying off 1,000
Right. You don't
people.
say layoffs.
You don't
say shrinkage.
Yeah, you say a shrink. Right. I mean, you could. This is all. It's all George Clooney up in the air stuff. Look at the euphemism.
I tried finding it, but that's where Maddow clips it on her.
Yes.
Site,
so. I mean, the response for Rachel, hopefully, was Pete, or Mayor Pete. Honestly, that's a little disingenuous. The idea that all those people are going to lose a job. And in fact, it's outlined in every person's plan who's come out with a Medicare for All plan, speaks to what will happen to hundreds of thousands of those people. Will go back in and either work for the government plan or end up being contracted out to do parts of the government plan. It's just absurd.